Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing really good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah,
Yeah.
fantastic. We are here again with another video as part of the Revert series that we have been doing. What episode is this now? Is it 3? I
I
think
think
it's
so.
3. I think it's 3.
hmm
It's 3 or 4. It's one of them. So today's title is "What Have You Got to Lose?" and it is based on a video that we're going to watch in a minute, Inshā'Allāh. Okay, so you ready?
Yep.
Hey, if you're a Muslim that celebrates Christmas, if you're a Muslim that has a business and puts up decorations that says Merry Christmas to all of your customers, if you're a Muslim that says Merry Christmas to Bill at the office or Ted from the school, just know that you're making revert lives harder. I'm out here trying to maintain a relationship and make sure my parents are comfortable and explain to them how I can't come to the most important holiday of the year and I can't say Merry Christmas because it's against my religion. Pops is clapping back like, I have a Muslim guy that I buy cars from time to time. He always calls me and says Merry Christmas. He's a real Muslim from the Middle East. And you can't say it to me, son? Y'all have nothing at stake. No relationship at stake. Why are you doing this? It's an unforced error. Come on now.
Yeah. I felt so bad for him.
It's not just that, but like he's got a really valid point. And when I heard it, I was just like, wow, I never thought about it like that because my family never celebrate Christmas. So like that's one thing that I don't have that experience to share with most reverts from Christian backgrounds. Do you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it was never like a thing for me. When he said that, I was just thinking, subhanAllah, like I never thought about it from that angle. Some reverts try to give the excuse that it's okay to, you know, take part in these things. It's okay to say Merry Christmas and stuff like that. I sympathize with them to an extent because obviously like they're trying not to look like they've become extreme. So like this video kind of, for me, kind of just like highlighted that, you know, this Muslim tells me Merry Christmas. How can a revert then counter that? Do you know what I mean? It's difficult. And especially like if you're really new being a Muslim.
For me, it's a wee bit different now from what it was back in the day. But generally, this is an issue that doesn't really go away for reverts, if I'm honest, because even though my mum is Muslim now, so she also doesn't celebrate, right? So that makes it easier for me. But around this time of year, like it's only me, my mum, and my brother. We have my dad, but my mum and dad are not together. So when it comes to me, my mum, and my brother, around this time, my brother just looks like he goes into a manic depression. Like he he sort of feels like the odd person out sometimes. Now that's really hard for me. Like it's not that it's hard for me not to practice it because I haven't practiced it in such a long time, and you know it's something that I put in place at the very beginning. But it still at this time, I see the effect that it has on my brother, and I also see the effect that it has on my dad. Even just taking my kid to school, so many people say to me Happy New Year, and it's so difficult to sort of channel that without coming across, you said extreme, but I would say rude. People just think that it's rude.
Oh,
They
yeah,
don't
well, that
understand.
too. Yeah, definitely.
Like
Yeah.
they don't have principles and values where it's like this, where you have to be so disciplined and you have to be so, you know, cautious about the things that you say. Like there's zero consequences for them as far as they're concerned, you know. But it also applies to really important life situations, like for example a family wedding. I'm Scottish. A large part of our culture is alcohol, and at weddings guaranteed there's going to be alcohol everywhere. I'm actually dealing with a situation right now where a close family member invited me to be a prominent part of their wedding, but because of issues like this, I mean, they're ready to accommodate me food wise, they're ready to accommodate me in any way that they can, but the alcohol thing, it's almost like it's pointless to have a wedding if there's no alcohol. Like that's sort of the view. People don't understand the everyday dynamics that reverts sometimes have to go through. Not even just reverts, but any Muslim that's in a family that isn't really practicing or has adopted Western culture, because even that's really common. It is so difficult because you really don't want to hurt the people you love's feelings, but sometimes it feels like inevitable, you know, like damage control. Like that's my experience anyway. I don't know if you can relate to anything that I said there.
Yeah, like literally, I feel like I've had like probably a really easy ride because as I said, I don't really have this issue with my family so much. Because like literally, like yeah, alhamdulillah, like I think probably my biggest thing was birthdays with my mum specifically, because like I don't celebrate birthdays, and obviously I know a lot of Muslims do, but I don't believe in it because I think it's a bundle of nonsense. It's also paganism. For my mum, that's always been something like growing up, she's always tried to make like, you know, special for us in some kind of way and stuff like that. You know, she never went over the top, but she always wants to say happy birthday kind of thing. And she's like, oh, but you know, God's giving you another year of life. And for me, I'm just like, well, actually, I've got a year less of life. So like, I've seen it from the other side kind of thing. And she sees it like it's something nice for kids. Do you know what I mean? But like I've explained it to her and she's okay with it. She doesn't like push it. So it's not like a really big deal. I feel like for me, where it's been most difficult is been from other Muslims. For example, like with my kids, like as I said, I've never celebrated birthday with them, and they've never had an issue with it. Like they've never come to me. They've never come to me and said, "Oh, Mama, why don't we celebrate birthdays?" Or I want a birthday present. And that's even when they was in school or anything like that, you know, like, or even when they used to see other friends like having birthday parties or something, and they were Muslim, they never said, "Oh, why are we not doing this?" Because they understood. It's just like, well, it's not Islamic. It's not something that comes from Islam, so we don't do it. Period. We had Eid. Yeah. We always make a big deal of Eid. So that was it, halas, and they was happy. When they got like to like more their teenage years, and you obviously become a bit more independent and stuff, you know, they'll have friends, and those friends would go out of their way to like buy them a present for their birthday or buy them a cake. Their friends are kind of pushing it on them, like, "Oh, it's your birthday, we need to do something."
It's not even just friends. It's not even just friends. Sometimes it's family members, like from the Muslim side of the family. It's not even that they just, like you said, impose it almost on the kids by getting them stuff or just getting them a treat, and it's not connected, even though it's on the day and it's very similar to what is actually done. But it's almost like they call you out for it. So they're like, you know, Aisha, it's not a big deal, you're making it a big deal. And I'm just kind of like, I'm not actually, you're making it a big deal.
They try to make it like it's something, like it's so innocent. I had this conversation with another sister. She was trying to justify buying her kids birthday presents and stuff like that. And it was a time when one of her kids' birthdays was coming up, and she was like, you could see she was getting a bit stressed about it. You know, parents do get stressed about these things. So you're thinking, oh, money. And said, well, I don't celebrate birthdays. And she's like, yeah, I know birthdays is not like Islamic and stuff. So she admitted it, that she knows that it's not. And I said, but you're the one that's teaching them to want to have this.
Yeah,
you know,
to feel that desire.
She was basically saying that her kids don't expect anything from her anyways, because she was a single parent too, right? So she's like, yeah, my kids don't expect me to do anything, but I just feel like I need to. And I was like, well, why do you feel like you need to? I said, like, you have Eid, we've got 2 of them, save your money till then, or save your gifts collecting and, you know, give it to them for Eid. That makes your life easier. And she was just like, oh no, I have to do something. And I was just like, well, you know, you're just basically putting unnecessary pressure on yourself. And as I said, teaching your kids to do something which they don't, you know, they're not demanding this from you. So it's like you're imposing something on them which you know is not Islamic, so that they can grow up feeling that that's something normal, that they should be doing it. You know what I mean? What is the benefit of that? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think for some mothers, especially if they're revert mothers, right, because they've been raised in these environments where birthdays are really important and different festivities are really, really important. I think for them, they think that it's a symbol of love, that if they don't do these things, then by default, they don't love their kids. And I think this is a mindset that you really, really need to attack face on, like no mercy, because it does limit you in the long run. Like at some stage, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I never did that. And you're going to look at your kids and they're going to be so attached to these materialistic commercial holidays. Like they really honestly weigh families down. I have a cousin, she has a large family, right? She's married to a guy who has his own children from a first marriage, and she also has children from the marriage. And I swear they have about like 5 or 6 birthdays in December as well as Christmas. And they have about, I think it's about 15 or 16 grandchildren between them, and they have to give each kid something, as well as their actual children, as well as the birthdays. So burdened by it. Like I really genuinely feel so bad for them. Honestly, I don't know how they manage.
It's become toxic. Kind of pressure, like you know, show that you really genuinely love somebody. Do you know what I mean? That's the problem. Like I was even talking to my mum yesterday about this, like parents who don't need to work, just working for the sake of being able to like finance these kind of things, because others, especially, maybe they don't have to work, but they're going to go out, get a job to earn that extra bit of money so that they can buy their kids X amount of presents, which you have to spend like at least this much money on gifts. You know what I mean? There's certain things which are quite pricey, and that's even for really small kids. And it's like, you know, you're doing these things from a young age and showing that your children that love is something that should be shown in money, or you know, this kind of monetary value. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like it shouldn't be like that. People lose the sense of like appreciation for even small things. For my kids, for example, they're used to having home cooked meals. Once in a while, if we have a meal out or like take out, they would be excited about that, because it's like we hardly do that. And even though they would tell me, oh, we think your cooking's best anyway, we prefer your food, but just that little something, they know this is a treat.
Check is in the mail.
You know what I mean? Something, because it's not all the time, and I don't have to cook. That's a break for me as well. So they see it like, you know, that time is like, oh well, mama's getting a break too. They can see that, you know, this is a time for everybody to just kind of like have that, you know, more quality time together, if you like. When you do something all the time, it just becomes the norm. Takes away certain things from being special. If you're always used to getting these expensive gifts, will you appreciate when somebody who really loves you comes and gives you something small and says, well, oh, I made this, I don't know, a family heirloom, or do you know what I mean? Something that is really deeply personal to somebody, and they decide they're going to come and give it to you. Something that literally is priceless, but you might look at it and think, well, you know, you haven't spent any money, so you know, that's how little you think of me kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like people are having more materialistic view of things these days. So it's just like, it's like a training. Scary. Like people need to think more consciously about like how they're kind of training their children to accept gifts from people, or even their spirit of giving as well. You know, if you train your kids to believe that, you know, this something has to be done, then they could be feeling pressure in themselves that, oh, one day, oh no, I'm gonna have to do this too.
Pressure is one thing. Pressure is probably better than most feelings, because then they feel the negative of it, right? But to instill in your kid a desire, though, a desire to have these things, that's like another level. You should be instilling a desire, be unapologetic about not practicing these things, to be kind about it, not to be rude, to be firm, to be comfortable and secure and rejecting these things. But that, I just feel, is like less and less common. Before I mentioned the family member and the wedding, a part of what helped me sort of, you know, say, listen, unfortunately I'm not able to go to this part in this section in this manner because of, you know, alcohol being the main reason, but other small things. A part of what helped reassure them, let's say, was the fact that they knew that I had never celebrated a Christmas, that I have never celebrated a birthday. I would never be in a situation where alcohol would be around me. That helped reassure them that it's not about them, because some people do take it personal. Yeah, I think this is what stood out about the video that we watched. The guy was like, you know, I'm really trying, I'm making it hard, but people don't realise how much an impact of being consistent is. I mean, I think there's many reasons for why we have this issue. I think a lot of it is lacking in knowledge, innovations that have become normal in some areas of life, interpret the religion in the way that they want to, rather than in the way that is legislated and preserved. Being consistent means that we are a part of preserving the image of Islam and the practice of Islam. It is a really admirable and important role to play in the community, as well as, you know, society as a whole. But within the Muslim community, we should be nurturing each other, empowering each other to be stable in these avenues.
I think it comes down to like also partly having inferiority complex, because it's just like that if you can't beat them, join them. So people who don't feel confident enough to be able to deal with these issues, it's just like, oh, well, I'll just pretend that it's okay to take part in them. It's like turning a blind eye and just like, oh, well, I have good intentions. And some people use the excuse like, well, you know, we need to give a good image of Islam. But it's just like, well, you're not giving a good image of Islam because you're diluting it. So tell people that this is okay for Muslims to do. You're not really showing them what Islam is and why we don't do certain things. You know, I saw a clip, Eddie from the Dean show, he was talking about Christmas itself. And he said, like, even like some of the prominent Christian like preachers, you know, they've explicitly said that Christmas is all paganism. It all comes from paganism, like everything to do with Christmas, the mistletoe, the tree, you know, the date, the whole thing is something not from Christianity in any way.
Well, I agree with you fully. And I think part of the argument coming from either those who practice it who are Muslim or the non-Muslims in themselves, they say, but it's not really religious. It's not really religious though. I'm not doing it for religious reasons. Obviously Santa wasn't in the Bible, so like it's not about that. And you're like, well, actually it's heavily deep rooted in religion, paganism and things like that, which we are fundamentally against.
Paganism, you know, that is explicitly to do with worshipping other than Allah. Paganism itself is literally rooted in worship of ancestors, worship of nature. Do you know what I mean? So when you look at the origin of birthdays, you find it. When you look at the Christmas, like Easter, all of these celebrations, Halloween as well is another one. Like subhanAllah, you get Muslims like trying to celebrate Halloween. It's like got to be the most ridiculous thing like anybody could ever want to do of all of them. Like might as well wear a sign on your forehead saying, Yalla shaitan, come to me.
I mean, what advice would you give to reverts who, like this guy, are having to deal with this?
The same advice that I probably give to like even just regular Muslims, because this is something that comes up, like for example, when it comes to, for example, going to school and the issue of music, like when you're living in a Western country specifically, I think this happens a lot. I know that Muslim countries are introducing certain things now, but in a Western country, for example, they had a couple of instances where two sisters that I knew who were, you know, practicing, trying to implement Deen properly. Their kid got to an age where in the curriculum, studying music, bringing a musical instrument home was mandatory, you know, and both went to the school to challenge it and say, well, you know, I don't want my child to take part in this. And, you know, can they not be part of the lesson? Except school obviously asked them why. When they gave their reasons, because it's against my religion, the two sisters was going to two different schools. Their kids were at different schools, right? It was the first time the teacher had ever heard of that. And these both schools were Muslim majority schools. They're not Muslim schools, but they were Muslim majority schools.
So no one had ever challenged them in all the many years.
Nobody. That means that all of those Muslim parents were just letting their kids bring home musical instruments and play them and stuff like that. It upsets me because you're giving your child a ticket and letting them, you know, take part in music in school. When they start getting to the age of teenage years and they want to bring home the hip hop and the just popular music generally. So these are the things that Muslim children are getting into, and it starts from you allowing them to do these things when they're a young age. When they get to the teenage years, whether it's subconsciously or not, you've coached them into, you know, practicing these things or accustomizing themselves to listening to music and this kind of stuff. There's a culture that comes with it, a culture of disrespect to parents, a culture of disrespect to women, a culture of drugs, a culture of prostitution, a culture of so many different things. Your child is literally being conditioned, and then when parents see that their children are doing things which for them means completely going the wrong way because it's like so alien to them, they start panicking. But you've let it get to this stage. You've been a part of that. What I would say to reverts and born Muslims, when it comes to, you know, these kind of things, not celebrating different celebrations or, you know, whatever it is, whether it's your children or your family members, you just have to explain to them that there's some flexibility in certain areas, but there's certain things where if you add them, then it's no longer Islam. You can't add something to religion. We can't take anything out. You have to follow Islam by, you know, the prophetic evidences, by the proof, by what's in the Quran and the Sunnah. That's how we follow Islam. We can't just add things and say, well, it's okay as a Muslim to do it. Because if we do that, we're actually changing the religion. They might not like it, like in the first instance, but they will respect you. You have to explain to them that, you know, some Muslims maybe don't feel comfortable or don't know how to deal with these different situations out of their own ignorance, feel that it's okay to follow these celebrations because Islam does teach Muslims to respect the differences of others. Respecting other people's differences doesn't mean that we should be following them. Do you know what I mean? There's a difference. Because for many centuries, Muslims, Christians, Jews was living alongside each other, you know, in different in Muslim countries, and it's still the same in places today. But you don't need to be everybody celebrating everybody's different celebrations. You explicitly have your own things.
When I was talking to the family member about the wedding thing, we spoke about assimilation, and we spoke about, you know, the melting pot theory in comparison to the salad bowl theory. I think in regards to your kids, you don't want to teach them that they have to lose themselves in order to fit in, to lose their principles and values, to lose their deen, to some extent their culture as well, to fit in. In fact, we should be more like the salad bowl, where we're able to retain our individuality but come together with the community in a way that works, in a way that doesn't compromise you. It doesn't compromise your principles and values, doesn't compromise your deen, or in some respects your culture. So important, I think, for us, especially as revert mothers, we have to, or even revert fathers, I guess, we have to take our emotions out of the situation. Our reversion is a long-term emotional roller coaster at times, you know. Even 18 years on, I'm still facing certain things that I think will always be, you know, not that I'm complaining, alhamdulillah, I have it easier than most. So, but I think the point that I'm making though is like, we don't want to be passing that down to our kids.
Exactly.
We have a lot to learn and a lot to master in terms of how we handle life. Me, what I always try to keep in mind, that things are not about me, you know. So whenever I have a weakness or a desire in an area that I fall short, it is my kids that I use as motivation to keep me on par, because we do lead by example. The kids will follow in your path. So you might say, right, okay, you know, when people invited me, I took them because it's their pals and it's this, that and the other. Right, okay, well, when they're 21, 22, going to bars with their non-Muslim friends, celebrating birthdays, not drinking alcohol, you have a part to play in that, because you made it so that there is exceptions to the rule. I'm breaking stereotypes. I'm a Muslim, but I also do this and also know how to have fun. I'm all for breaking stereotypes. There's many of them when it comes to Muslims in Islam, but only in the direction and then in the way of truth.
A lot of stereotypes about Muslims are like literally completely unfounded. They're not true at all. So you're not actually breaking stereotypes. You're just feeding into the narrative that already exists. So in that instance, when you know you meet that person and they tell you Merry Christmas and you reply with all jolly, you're really like, what is it worth?
Yeah. May Allah help us and guide us. No, I fully agree. And I think that's what we can take for the guy's video, the brother's video, right? Is what he said is like, you know, you have nothing really at stake. You might feel uncomfortable in the moment, but in terms of real relationships and real things at stake, like you don't have it. You actually make it really difficult for the people who are trying to stick by their principles, stick by their deen. You're making it so hard for them because of your moment of weakness. Like even my dad, I sometimes feel like I break his heart with these things. He too has said many things like the brother mentioned, where he's like, well, I know this Muslim and they do that. And it's really hard when you're trying to give these same people dawah to be able to sort of show them that actually, like, even though we don't do this, it's not about you and it's not a negative. People don't understand Tawheed. People don't understand Allah and what He gives us and does for us on the daily. These people don't see that at all. So when we're trying to reason and trying to show them that, but then we're having these unnecessary barriers put in the way because people can't, in the moment, just, you know, pull their socks up and, you know, do what they have to do for the sake of Allah. Like we end up, you know, it's just, it's frustrating. Strength isn't just about how we look physically, first and foremost, should have mental stability and strength. I think how I would want to finish this video is just say to the reverts, despite these barriers, like, stay firm, you know. And if you're new in your journey as a revert, take it one step at a time, you know, get advice on how other reverts have went about implementing the change of not celebrating birthdays and Christmas and other festivities. You know, it is doable. You yourself are an example. I myself am an example. Like, we still have the relationships with our loved ones despite you know, these things. In the beginning, it takes a lot of talking, and it takes a lot of like I said before, reasoning. You have to show them the place and position you're coming from. You have to do it with kindness. It's not that you recklessly just say, that's it, I'm not celebrating Christmas, you know, do it yourself, I don't care. And you know, there's ways of going about things, but it is possible. Don't let the whispers of the shaitan tell you that it's not. Don't let the insecurity of weak-minded people allow you to believe that it's all right to continue down this path. Stay true to yourself. Remember that your soul counts and the soul of your dependents count, and the way forward is to, you know, give things up for the sake of Allah. And I can assure you, you don't give up anything for Allah without getting better back, better in return. Inshallah.
Definitely, it's all about the long game. It's not about short-term goals. It's about the long-term goals. And you know, unfortunately, we live in a society which focuses most purely on like short-term pleasure and, you know, the desires, you know, fulfilling desires. And that's not what our deen is about. It's about submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to think ahead, you know, what is going to benefit us in the long term. And when you stay with Allah and the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not going to go wrong with anybody. Because, you know, this part of the hadith that says that when, you know, Allah loves you, he tells Jibreel and the angels to love you, and then, you know, they tell that he causes the people on earth to love you as well, you know, subhanAllah. So this is something, it's a process. It's going to take some time, you know, to get
Allah make us amongst those people, Summer.
I mean,
yeah.
Ameen.
Ameen. That being said, I just want to say that me and the beautiful sister Summer are not shaykhas, and we do not claim to be. So any mistakes that we may have made in this video is from us and our need for knowledge, and anything good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.